Hey guys, Andy here. So we've done the hard work around getting people on the call. We've opened the call strongly. We've done some preamble. We've got people comfortable. We now need to transition into the questioning phase, right? The key questioning phase. Super important that this goes well. Now, what I like to do is I like to ask people what their main challenge is. What's the number one challenge that you're looking to fix today? Or what specifically brought you on the call today? I like to ask the number one challenge because it kind of gets right into the heart of the matter. If you ask something like, so how can we help you today? Or how can I help you today? People would typically minimize their problem. And this will sound familiar because people will kind of go, well, I just need a little bit of help losing weight. Or I just need a little bit of help finding some leads. Or I just need a little bit of help um, getting more customers. So I just need a little bit. And that instantly sets this tiny problem which needs just a tweak and completely it's the wrong frame of mind if you've got something resembling a high ticket offer, right? So when people start to talk about just needing a little something, it's just a steer in the right direction. That could be information. It could be a low level bit of consulting maybe. But if you're providing services of three and four figures, you can't 3 and 4 figures. What a cunt! Hi guys, Andy here. So you've done a good piece of work here. You've got people on the call. You've done a strong opening. You've got some preamble. Everyone's settled into the call. Now you need to transition. Oh, fucking cunt. Hey guys, Andy here. So you've done the hard work. You've got people on the call. You've opened strongly. You've done a nice bit of preamble. Everyone's settled nicely. You're now going to transition into the questioning phase of the call. Now, I like to get into this pretty deeply, pretty quickly. You've kind of done the setup, and you've got people in the right frame of mind to be engaging with you now. So I don't like to kind of dance around it. I don't like to ask something vague like how can I help you today? Because in my experience, people tend to minimize the problem when they respond. They go, "Oh, I'm just looking for a little bit of this. I'm just looking for a little bit of that, or just a small bit of information." And actually, our role in this questioning phase is to understand the issues, understand the impact of those issues, understanding who else and what else might be impacted by these issues, and the knock-on effect of that. Okay, so in many ways, and this isn't creating problems for creating problems' sake, but in many ways we need to maximize that as part of this before we then get into goals and aspirations, and then people see this huge gap in terms of where they're looking to get to and where they actually are, and the knock-on effects that where they are having on them and their whole situation in life and business. So I like to get into it really, really quickly with something along the lines of, so what's the number one problem you're struggling with right now? And it just gets to it then. What is the number one thing? You're always going to find things that sit underneath that. But what's that number one thing? Well, the number one thing is I'm 40 pounds overweight. I'm feeling super lethargic. I think I look dreadful. I'm ashamed to take my top off in front of my partner. It's really doing damage to my confidence and, right? Not everyone comes forth with that, but your job is to understand that stuff, right? So, but if you just ask something vague, you tend to get a very, very narrow answer. Whereas if you just say, what's the number one, the key thing, that then gives you something to anchor everything else off, potentially, if you think that's genuinely the thing that's bothering them. And when you've kind of gone through that initial phase of, what's the number one thing, and what else, just ask what else. There's usually something else that people bring to the party. It's like if I go to the doctors It's been a long time since I've had any kind of relationship with a doctor, but I had a long-term doctor, and when I used to go, he used to basically say, "Give me your list," because I used to be a typical guy. I wouldn't go with one thing. I'd just save it up and make the appointment worthwhile, right? But there's usually something else lurking, right? So ask those questions. What does that look like? So when you describe that to me, what does that mean? So when you say you don't like how you look, what do you mean by that exactly? Okay, and what else? There's always something else. So let the person fill in the blanks. They're going to fill in the blanks for you. They're also going to fill in the blanks for themselves, right? People will be saying things to you that they've not necessarily said out loud before. This is all stuff that just sits in people's heads, and it causes all sorts of embarrassment, shame, guilt, loss of confidence, anger, a whole range of emotions. But this may be the first time they come out and say it. And of course, that then gives you the ability to say, well, how long have you been feeling like that? Or how long has this problem been going on? And then you're into, and what have you done so far to try and remedy that? And how did that work out for you? What were the things you liked about that? What were the things you didn't like about that? So you ask them what they've done, what they've liked about it, what they haven't liked about it. What are they doing right now to try and get the result? Why do you think that isn't working for you? So if you take fitness, health and fitness as an example, and let's look at something weight loss. I like to use this because a lot of us have been there. It's a very easy one to understand, but you can also attach the types of thing I'm talking about and translate it into business. It could be fat loss. It could be getting leads, or give me direction around my online marketing, right? But I'm overweight. It's impacting on my confidence. It's impacting on my relationship. I'm scared to get undressed in front of my partner. It's been going on for years. Yes, I think it's impacting the relationship. I'll come back to this later, but there's also what does your partner think? Whole different area, that which I promise I will come back to in a later module. But you can see how you start to filter down. What starts off as I'm 40 pounds overweight, you get into then the detail of who else and what else is impacted by that. I've got no energy, my joints hurt, my clothes don't fit me properly. I've got like 5% of my wardrobe that I feel comfortable in. I don't like to have my picture taken. I hide in my cubicle at work. I don't really go out anymore. It just goes on and on and on. And our job is to pull this stuff out. In a nice way, but just questions on top of questions on top of questions that help us to pull this stuff out and also to clarify. What do you mean by that? Tell me more about that. When you said X, what did that actually mean? Who else do you think that might impact upon? Or what else might that impact upon? How long has this been going on? When was the last time you felt great about yourself? When was the last time you felt that your business was going in the right direction? How else have you invested in yourself or your business up until now? And how did that go? And so I'm kind of covering some of the same ground here, but I can't tell you how important it is to kind of go down that rabbit hole. Sometimes it can get excruciatingly painful for the prospective client, and you can get really uncomfortable yourself, but it's absolutely worth it. Now, one of the key things that's got to happen here, people are going to make themselves vulnerable to you or in front of you. And it's really worth acknowledging that Um, because it's the right thing to do, and because you probably will feel this anyway. At least I hope you will. When somebody's been that candid and that open, to just take a moment and say, hey, do you know what? I really appreciate you being so open. I appreciate it probably wasn't difficult. And thank you for trusting me enough to share that with me today. The other thing in all this is being able to play back what people have said, not for the reasons that you might think actually, but it's not so that you can reinforce their points in their own words, which is what a lot of people might have you do, but it's more that you can demonstrate to them that they've been genuinely heard. You've listened, and you can repeat that back, but most importantly that they've genuinely been heard. And like I say, this may be the first time that people have said some of this stuff. Okay, so it's super important that in this upfront questioning phase you just stay in the saddle and ask your questions. Now, I'll do another module on what happens when people don't open up. But in the main, by the time people get on the phone with you or on Zoom with you, and they've seen your marketing, they've seen their pre-call material, they've done their homework, they filled out an application form, they'll feel like they've got a bit of skin in the game. And when they actually turn up, they turn up to have a conversation. Our job is to make that conversation happen. And when people don't just come forth with information, we can't blame them, it's ourselves, right? We've got to be in the right zone. We've got to have set up properly for that call. We've got to ask those questions, and we've got to stay in the saddle and not let people off with surface level answers. Because if you just get surface level answers, you'll have nothing to really build upon in terms of what the challenge is. You then set the tone for the rest of the call that surface level is good enough. Then when you get down the road for your offer and potential pitch, if you think that they're a good fit, if they don't just go, hey, yeah, it's the best thing I've ever seen, and buy it, if you run into resistance in the form of any kind of objection, you're going to struggle, because you're not going to have the good stuff from back here, what's going on and their rationale and their goals and their whys, to be able to play that back and turn the situation around. Now, hopefully that makes sense. This is a bit longer, this video. If you need to, listen to it a couple of times. If you've got any questions at all, any comments, raise your hand and I'll come back to you just as soon as I can.